Alright, in this section we are going to be looking at exponents and order of operations. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, let's talk about exponents. Exponents are used for repeated multiplication. So for example, x to the fourth means multiply x 4 times. So we're repeatedly multiplying x. So 7 squared, or 7 to the second power, would mean multiply 2 7s, and so we get 49. Again, I want to remind you, of a couple things. The 2 here is an exponent, and we call the 7 the base. And again, the way we say this is either 7 squared or 7 to the second power. Let's look at another one. What if we had 4 with an exponent of 3? Well, that means multiply 3 4s. So we can multiply the first 2, we get 16 times 4, we end up with 64. Again, it's important to know how to say these. This would be 4 cubed, that's the shortcut, and then 4 to the third power. So anything above a 3, we would say, like for example, 6 to the 4th power or 7 to the 8th power. So we just have shortcuts for the first 2, for 2 and 3. Alright, let's move on and do some examples. Oh, and I do want to mention that x to the n means multiply x n times. That's our general definition for exponents. Now we can do some examples. Alright, so I'm going to give you a bunch of problems to evaluate. So you should go ahead and stop this video and do these problems, and then you can come back and check your answers. Alright, so 5 times 5, that's what 5 squared means, get 25. 2 cubed means multiply 3 2's. When we do that, we can multiply the first 2 to get 4, times the other 2, and we're going to get 8. Now you really ought to know at least up to 12 squared when you look at your squares, and 12 squared is 144. If you have 3 to the 4th, we're going to multiply 4 3's, and since you can multiply in any order you want, I would pair these up. I could pair the first 2 3's and the second 2 3's. I get 9 times 9, and so we get 81. And then finally on this last one, anything to the first power means multiply it times itself once. So it's just going to equal itself. Alright, so we're going to move on to order of operations. Now order of operations is really important all throughout algebra, so it's really important that you get this down. It's something you really want to work at. Again, I would consider it part of our ABCs. In fact, a lot of what we're doing is laying a foundation for later and stuff that we'll be using throughout algebra. Alright, so first of all, operations are just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, and some of the other things we do with numbers, like square a number. Let's go ahead and discuss a couple of things. First of all, I want you to look at a problem, so we'll just call this an introduction. If I say evaluate 4 plus 12, divide 2 times 3, I'd like you to go ahead and do that and come up with a number answer. Again, stop the video and then you can come back here. Alright, so here are some of the answers that people end up coming up with. Depending on the order that they did things, the question is, which one of these is right? Well, it turns out that additions and subtractions are always done last, and although some people think multiplication comes before division, they're actually equal in priority, and with equals we do the one on the left first. So we actually divide here first. So this will become 4 plus 6 times 3, and then next we multiply. So it'll be 4 plus 18. So 22 was the right answer. So let's go through the order of operations. Now a lot of people have learned PEMDAS. P stands for parentheses, E stands for exponent, M for multiplication, D for division, A for addition, and S for subtraction. And this is fine except for it looks like multiplication comes before division, which is not true. It also looks like addition comes before subtraction, which is also not true. So if you're going to use PEMDAS, a better way to write it would be like this. So that you have your multiplication and division on the same level and addition and subtraction. And just remember that you go left to right with multiplication and divisions or additions and subtractions. The way I prefer to do it is a little bit different. It really doesn't matter to me which way you do this. So parentheses are at the top, and then you have exponents. Later on we'll add radicals in there. Multiplication, division, and then the last priority is addition and subtraction. Now, I actually like to get a little creative with this. Since parentheses is priority number 1, I call it king. And I want to remind you what this means when we say parentheses come first. What it means is if there's anything inside parentheses that you can simplify, that's what you want to do first. And then after that we do exponents, and then multiplications and divisions come next. Now remember, these are equal in priority, and with equals we go left to right. So we may do a division before multiplication depending on which one's on the left. And the same is true with addition and subtraction. It doesn't always make a difference, but it often will. So again, just remember to work left to right when you're working with equal priority operations. Alright, so now it's time to do some problems. So you're going to simplify using the order of operations. So number 1, notice we have an addition here and a multiplication. And of course we do the multiplication first. So we'll have 4 plus 10, which is 14. Number 2, here we have a division and a multiplication. And again, we just talked about how these are equal priority, and we do the one on the left first. And so this is going to be 4 times 4, and so we're going to get 16. Let's do another one. On number 3, notice the highest priority here, we have a multiplication and we have an exponent. We know that exponents come first, so you should be squaring just the 3, and then 5 times 9 is going to give you 45. Let's do one more on this page. So parentheses is king. We know we need to simplify what's inside parentheses first, and so we're going to get 4 times 5, which is 20. Alright, let's move on to some more examples. On number 5, let's see, we have a multiplication, an addition, a division, and a subtraction. So we're going to do our multiplication and our division first, and we'll work from left to right. So let's do the division next. And then again with addition and subtractions, we're going to go left to right. So this is 41 minus 3, which is 38. And let's move on to number 6. So here, order of operations says the highest priority is what's inside the parentheses, so let's do that first. Notice that 6 and the 8 are going to have to be multiplied next. 6 next to parentheses means we're going to multiply. So this will be 48 plus 4, which is going to be 52. All right, let's move on to our next examples. Let's see, so here we're going to square first. That's our highest priority. Then we have a multiplication, a division, and another multiplication, and we'll do those from left to right. So let's multiply the 3 and the 4, and do the division of 30 by 3, and then we'll worry about multiplying by 2 last. So we have 12 plus 10 times 2, and we'll want to multiply next. And so we're going to get 32. Notice the way I'm showing my work. Sometimes students will do all their work on one line, and by the time they're done it looks like a mess. And sometimes if you find yourself getting wrong answers, I would just really emphasize the importance of doing it step by step the way I'm here. Alright, number 8. So again, we have some parentheses. Let's take care of that first because there's something to simplify in there. And now it's time to apply the power. Notice the base is just the 2. You don't want to multiply that 4 and 2 first. So this will be 100 minus 4 times 8. Remember, 2 cubed means 2 times 2 times 2, which would be 8. So we're going to end up with 100 minus 32, because we want to multiply. And then the last thing we do is subtract. Alright, let's move on to another problem. Now when we have parentheses inside parentheses, we're going to do the innermost parentheses first. And so this becomes 2 plus 4 times 8. Now it's really tempting before we get to the parentheses to want to add that 2 and that 4, but you just can't. Because you have to take care of the parentheses inside first, and that 4 will be multiplied times 8, and that's the next thing you're going to do. The 2 plus 4 is not, we'd be following the wrong order of operations. So notice now we're going to multiply. Get 2 plus 32, which is 34. And let's move on to number 10. So again, we have parentheses within parentheses. Let's do the innermost parenthesis first. And then we're going to want to square that, just the 2. Next, inside the parentheses, we're going to multiply. Now we can finally simplify what's in that bracket, or the brackets, and then we're going to get 48 out of that. Alright, let's go to the last 2 problems. We've got 2 more examples. So 20 plus 16 over 8 minus 2 squared. It turns out that a fraction bar is a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember the name, but basically that division bar separates the problem into like 2 different problems. In fact, we could write it as 20 plus 16 divided by 8 minus 2 squared. So it's a special kind of separation symbol. So basically we simplify the numerator, we simplify the denominator, and then whatever fraction we get, we simplify that. So here, 20 plus 16 is 36. Notice in the denominator we're going to square first, so it'll be 8 minus 4. That's going to give us 36 over 4, which is 9. So it's very important that you add the 20 and the 16, then do the denominator, 8 minus 2 squared, and the last thing you do is simplify that. Alright, let's do one more of these. So here we're going to square the 5 and square the 3, and then we'll subtract in the numerator. And then in the denominator we've got to multiply first. And then when we simplify the arithmetic here, we get 16 over 8. And this fraction can reduce can be reduced to 2. And that's the end of this lesson. Great job, guys.